So it's great, you know.
Yes.
Russ.
Hey,
Hello, Russ.
we had the assistant Cutman there, Luke. Russ, in the meantime, fill in while you're in, I guess, might be a great breakfast spot, but maybe not a great Wi-Fi spot.
Well, I'm not into. They're two separate spots, but all of a sudden I was talking. My thing was going, and you started spinning. I said, "Oh, what happened now?" So
Yeah. Like our meetings, for those who don't know, like our internal meetings as well. This is something many times with you and your internet that can be a bit complicated, and we usually had for a long time before the Wi-Fi guys came and fixed the issue. We had a not again while Russ was frozen, minimum, what, 5 times a meeting? Pretty entertaining.
yeah, it clearly was not my fault. So I mean, what do
We
you?
were,
No.
we were
Clearly.
always blaming this on technology and ages, but didn't work out this time.
Anyway,
Luke, if you wanna return back to working duties, we already have 2 people slacking here. So Russ, how about you go into, you were saying Taylor-Serrano, and Luke, we were talking about the atmosphere in New York. He had Katie Taylor 96-94, as many of, I think, 2 of the judges. I don't know if you were scoring it round by round, but it had to be a heck of a close fight, and that's why I think there's no way there's going to be anything other than a rematch.
I don't want to lie, because I could lie and nobody would know the difference, right? But I don't want to lie and say I had a paper going 10-9, 10-9, 10-9 back and forth. I wasn't doing that. But after each round, we were sat there and we said Taylor's round, Serrano's round, back and forth. And on many rounds, those of us in the dressing room were picking the opposite person. So you could see how difficult a fight it was to score. And certainly 2-minute rounds is just,
here we go,
insane. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I'm saying here we go, because the 2-minute round debate resurfaced like crazy the entire weekend and week. Now, Eddie Hearn and other people have argued that it makes it more entertaining. But to me, that argument doesn't add up, because then why wouldn't you do it for men? If men fought 2-minute rounds, the fights would be more entertaining as well, then, using that logic.
Yeah, I don't believe that that's the case. I think part of entertainment and part of the excitement is everything that happens in that 3rd minute, the fatigue, you know, over a course of 10 rounds or 12 rounds. You know, that's where excitement comes from. I mean, you would think if it was that good for 2 minutes, it's going to be just as good for 3 minutes. You know,
Well,
even if and you might increase the number of knockouts that you get. It also will separate the pretenders from the contenders. You know, I think that's a big thing. I think this business about going to the center of the ring and wailing your hands away for 2 minutes, which we saw in other fights, you know, is not good. It does not do the sport justice, and it certainly doesn't do fighters like Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano any justice for the levels that they could fight.
One of the people listening to us on the stream, I forgot the exact name, but we're saying that Taylor 97-93, that was maybe too wide of a scorecard. And you were talking about 3-minute rounds. This is what I was going to bring up. In 3 minutes, does Katie Taylor survive the 5th round? I believe was the round where, if it's a 3-minute round, she may not have come out of that fight.
That's part of the excitement. We don't know, you know, like we don't know. Would she have been able to do in the last minute what she did, you know, in the 2nd minute of the fight, you know, block, defend, and survive the round? So, you know, which one do you want to cover first? Like, would she survive, or the score? Because the score, yes, was ridiculous. There's only 2 possible, in my opinion, there's only 2 possible scores for this fight: 95-95 or 96-94, either way. And you could make a legitimate argument either way. Anything short of that, and you're not a judging properly. You're not picking out the subtleties of boxing and what's going on, what is effective, which things dominate others, you know, what is more important, how it's applied, who's making things happen. There's a lot of things that you're just not seeing, the subtleties you don't get. But that said, even for boxing experts, it's a very, like I said, I consider everyone that was in the room with me watching people who are very knowledgeable, knowing what they're talking about in boxing, and we couldn't decide, you know, on except maybe the 5th round. We'll give the 5th round.
And some of the final ones as well, I thought was a bit more easy to score.
Yeah, they were very difficult. Some rounds were very difficult, and I don't believe it's because of the fighters. I believe it's because of the time. And often, even with men, that round is often determined who's going to get it. Sometimes in the last 30 seconds of the round, you know.
Well, some fighters even strategically try to win only the last 30 seconds of a round.
Well, right. Yeah, because everything's, you know that you've been even going all the way through. And then, the last 30 seconds, you want to close because you want to get that little extra bit to win the round. And I think that's something that's missing. I would love to hear I just noticed Ellie Scottney joined and Swifty joined. I would like to know what their thoughts on this are, especially from a woman's perspective, on fighting 2 minutes or 3 minute rounds and how it changes, especially for those girls. I think the ones that are bothered by it the most are the ones who are the real technicians in there, the ones who really use their skill set, who understand about pacing the round, when to go, when to lay back, timing that clock in their head of 3 minutes, landing good shots, when to land them. I think they're more in favor of a 3 minute round than others where their technique might not be as good. They want to get out of it as quick as they can, bang, bang, get back to rest a little bit, go back out there, fight with a lot of heart, just throw punches, get back, try to keep it close for short periods of time. But the WBC sent out a thing saying that this is because, it's women and it's for the safety. I'd like to know if that's scientific or just wishful thinking. To me, that's if it is for science, then okay. If science tells you that there's more of a danger for women than it is for men, for whatever reason, whatever physiological reason, I'm open to listening. But if there's not, then it's the women both race. Women and men both race 100 meters in the 100 meters at an Olympic Games. They race the same distance. We're not expecting to see the same result, but they race the same distance. So I'm not sure what the reasoning is, why women, especially the great women who out there. And to me, I think it'll do the game more justice in raising the level of the quality that you get. Maybe there's not enough quality. Maybe that's another problem. Maybe that there's not enough people they can get to agree to fight 3 minute rounds, or who would be competitive in 3 minute rounds, but can maybe get by on 2 minute rounds. And I saw this in the amateurs when they changed and went to the 2 minute rounds instead of all of a sudden, all the weaker fighters were rising to the top. They were able to stay competitive where they couldn't stay when in 3 minute rounds. And you saw an influx of people suddenly become competitive because it went to 2 minute rounds with 1 minute rest. That was a long recuperation time for them, So, 3 minutes separates the pretenders from the contenders. That's for sure.
And what about the 10 to 12 rounds then? Should there also be 12 rounds for championship fights?
You know what? I don't see why. Again, you'd have to give me a real scientific reason why it shouldn't be. I'm not even sure that I'm for 12 rounders now for world title fights. Especially with the men, especially with weigh-ins being held the day before. There was one of the reasons why they switched was to 12 rounds was to allow fighters to, not to get into that dehydration stage of fighting 15 rounds. And that was a danger. And because fighters are cutting weight, they're trying to get down. Now you're having the weigh-ins the day before. There's plenty of time for rehydration. Is it really a safety issue now of going into rounds 13, 14, and 15? Of course, it's more dangerous. Of course, there's more fatigue, but it's not from a dehydration perspective that I think we should be looking at that. But that is what it is. Here we go again.
In Russ's internet there in the hotel room, and the location he's in has been kind of failing a little bit. Luke was able to save us before, and I wonder what a lot of people are saying here on the feed about the rounds and the minute between Katie Taylor and, of course, Amanda Serrano, as we wait for Russ Anber to try to rejoin and reconnect from his location. I wonder for people here who are following the feed and stuff would like to see, oh, here's Luke, who might come to the rescue again. In the meantime, while we have this back and forth with Russ and his bad internet, Luke seems to be in a more stable condition. The Cutman, and there's Luke. Do you think it makes a difference, Luke, when you speak to fighters, if they rather fight 10 rounds or 12 for a championship fight?
The fighter would, maybe some fighter would agree to 15 round back. That's the problem. But I think if they eventually do the step between 3 minutes and 2 minutes and 3 minutes, and they go from 10 to 12, they accept the standard, like the man standard, which one day maybe could be a good idea. But it shouldn't happen in like overnight. Like, okay, this championship fight is now 3-minute 12 round. That's gonna be a disaster. That's gonna be like there's gonna be repercussion, because the risk of doing boxing is calculated by most of the time the time that you're putting in the gym, the training that you have to accept this kind of beating, and
right,
you know, because it's a beating.
The risk, right? Yeah.
The risk, yeah. And you have and you managing the risk by training for a certain kind of standard of the task that you're going to do. If you augmented the task like by a lot, there could be a mistake happen, like problems, and yeah, I that's what I believe. But
yeah, but the thing is that I think also there might be something to do with the payment, right? Because if a fighter, once he goes 10 to 12 rounds, I believe the salary and the purse has, like, it has to increase, because usually, generally, when the fighter goes from 4 rounds to 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 championship fights, the purse increases, the salary of the fighter increases. So in the meantime, maybe they're also doing it for financial reasons, that they know if they start expanding to 12 rounds and maybe even 3 minutes, they're going to have to, theoretically, Katie Taylor was saying, in fact, last week, that they should get paid more then, because theoretically you're fighting for more time. So your payment should go up, and maybe they're in a position now where they're establishing a fan base that they can get these women the purse they want. But if they do it right away, maybe it becomes a financial thing also, because they were saying, like, even Eddie Hearn was saying Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano could not have happened financially speaking a few years ago. Oh, there's Russ again. In the meantime, Luc is the best assistant to have there. Well, it's going to be the Calling Russ Anber podcast with assist from Luc-Vincent.
By a chance that I have nothing to do at work here. Huh?
At least he's getting paid for what he's doing. I'm doing it
by you. By you, I'm getting paid. But the thing about the money, Matthew, I think you're right. However, like, let's say you compare boxing to other sports one more time, again, because this is always the relevance. Like tennis, they play the same kind of amount of stuff.
Except when it gets to the Grand Slams, which they go from 5 sets, women play 3.
But they have organization who take care of the salary and make it like a standard of, you play this level, is this, that, you know. In boxing, again, everybody's doing their own thing. They could have paid Serrano Taylor in a great fight, like amazing fight. But if it wasn't marketed properly, like the Zone did, it could have been like half of the payday for them, and it could have been like you know what I mean. The standard is so there's no standard in boxing. They do whatever, you do whatever you want. That's the
absolutely. And Russ, what we were saying there with Luc before is maybe one of the reasons why they don't want to go right away to 12 rounds for championship fighter, 3 minutes, because not only would it be a big step up to make that in one swoop decision, but apparently financially, there was also the arguments that they wouldn't have enough money to demand, kind of to fill in the demand, I mean, of the purse that these fighters would request if they were fighting 12 rounds in 3 minutes.
But I don't think that's different than what exists right now, let's say, in men's boxing, you know, because there are some guys who fight a 12-rounder for millions of dollars, and there are other guys who fight 12-rounders for 150,000. You know, I think it's relative to your drawing power, which is one thing that I want to be complimentary when I say this, but Amanda Serrano said, you know, we proved women can sell out. We proved women can sell. And I don't think that's 100% factual. You proved that you could sell. You proved that Katie could sell because of your skill level is so high. That's what sold it, you know, that the two best were going at it, and not just two very bad people who happen to be the best, two very good people who happen to be the best going at it. And I think that's true of men's boxing as well. You know, you do have a few fighters who draw, men fighters who draw despite their opposition, despite how good they are, they have a following, they draw. But in general, the fighters who have a skill set and people pay to come out and see them fight because of their abilities and what they bring to the ring and the excitement and the power or whatever. So I think I think it's a compliment to Katie and Serrano that they didn't just come out there and do this because they're women. They came out because they're exceptional at what they do. And that's the important thing. To leave gender out of this, they are exceptional at what they do.
That's a great point. Great point. And did you, while you were talking about promotion and the money they could bring, did you get Jake Paul's signature, Russ, while you were in New York City?
I did not.
Because he did regardless of what we think about Jake Paul, he definitely added an element of the promotion. And Eddie Hearn was also saying the same thing, that this could not have been possible, the extra money involved in the marketing and the fans in the stands, without Jake Paul.
I don't know. I just some things that he said. There's no doubt about it that he's a shock jock. Like he's like one of those former former talk show hosts. Who would say stuff just to rile the people to make the call-ins. Just to say, and that's what I feel he is. And I'm past that. Like I don't. Maybe it's because of my age. Maybe how long I've been around. What I've seen. I'm past that. I look at the fighters. I look what they can do. I look at the talent that they bring. I like boxing. At the ceremonial weigh-in, they had these WWF or WWE, I should say, personalities
Wrestlers
who were out there, talking trash on the mic about the fight. One with Serrano, one with Taylor, and I thought, like, are we really having to stoop this low to be using WWE? Actors to try to hype a fight.
I don't think it's being low. It's one of those crossover bouts that they're showing that there's interest. It just brings more eyeballs from different fan bases.
Different. It's just.
I'm sorry. I don't buy into that. So you're telling me all of a sudden because two WWE stars came up on stage and talked trash with their sunglasses on and a mic like they were doing a wrestling show, all of a sudden, all the people who watch WWE said, "Oh my God, what? I gotta watch this fight. Yeah, I'm gonna."
No. It's a long-term process, Russ. It's why Mayweather went to WrestleMania and attacked the Big Show years and years ago. They're just trying to establish and try to get into different demographics for long-term of grabbing different interests. But regardless of that notion, I understand completely. Let's go just with the final point I wanted to bring about Katie Taylor and Serrano here is there has to be a rematch, right?
Well, 100% there has to be. Why would you not? Why would you waste all that energy and investment of both time and money into producing that kind of a night and not do it again? Are you insane? It's going to even be bigger. Now, if the fight would have been a dud, you take your chances. But you didn't. You invested everything. And when I say they invested, you're talking about going and getting other eyeballs. It wasn't just WWE. They had a film clip of people, links of people from every spectrum you can imagine, Hollywood to whatever, sending in videos, singing their praises of the fight prior to the fight. Great night, historic moment, Madison Square Garden. I mean, they went all out. They put every bit of icing and cherries on this Sunday that they could possibly put. Okay, why would you do that if you're not preparing for Taylor-Serrano too? Have to do it. For boxing, men, women, I don't care. You have to do that fight because of the standard of the fight that it was, and it deserves to be. And you know what? Now is a time for Katie, who's being hailed as the greatest Irish athlete, not boxer, athlete in the history of Ireland. How do you not have a homecoming
over Conor McGregor, Russ? Is what you're saying?
That's what they're saying. Yeah, it's not just me saying it. I'm just, and I would say yes. But if you ask me, I would say yes based on her achievement alone. Olympic gold medalist, what she did, the pioneer that she was in Ireland to get women's boxing going. So
I believe their Olympic stuff has changed the whole game.
100%.
Okay.
Absolutely, you have to go to Ireland and have that walkout again, and now you'll have 60, 80,000 Irish singing instead of the 10,000 or 15,000 that were there. You'll have 80,000 of them singing. That's it. I've been to big events in Ireland. Believe me, it's everything else pales in comparison when it comes to the Irish and boxing.
All right. While I have Luke here also, let's get, because there's only a few minutes left there before your Wi-Fi falls out again, Russ. This weekend is Canelo Alvarez against Dmitry Bivol. Eddie Hearn goes from promoting last week's big event. He's now involved, of course, and he's buddies with Canelo for a few fights. and he has the major one in Vegas against Bivol at 175. The guy that you both work with, Artur Beterbiev, his fight was announced for June 18th against Joe Smith. So eventually we may get to a pattern of the titles being unified in the light heavyweight division. What do you make of Canelo Bivol? I think on paper, might be Canelo's toughest matchup since the Golovkin rematch.
I agree.
Yeah. You want to expand on that?
Well, look, I mean, I think everyone who follows boxing and who knows Bivol, even going back to his amateur days, knows that he comes with a solid pedigree. You know, he can fight. There's no doubt about it. But for some reason, and you know what, I think it might be a little unfair in as it pertains to Billy Joe Saunders as well, because Billy Joe Saunders could fight too. Could really fight.
Yeah, but it was a bad matchup for Canelo, and we know Saunders doesn't, I believe, based on what everything we hear, we read, we see, doesn't take his outside the training camp seriously as much as a guy like Bivol does. That makes a difference. Especially Canelo, who you know is following the right path, even when he's not in training camp.
Right. Listen, yeah, I think so, but I think that as special as Bivol is, I'm still until I see otherwise with my own eyes, I'm still of the opinion that that Canelo is special. And I don't know if you guys heard what he said to Eddie Hearn in apparently in a very serious manner, that he said he's ready to fight Usyk at 201 pounds, 1 pound over the limit, at 201, just over cruiserweight, and fight Usyk, and says he could beat Usyk. And that's how much confidence this guy has in his abilities. And I don't think it lies only in his mind. I think he believes that because of what he can do with his hands, how he sees things, how comfortable he is in the line of fire, not worried about getting hit, and knowing that when he lands, he's going to hurt you. Regardless of what size you are, it's going to hurt. And I've seen him work. I've seen him hit. I've seen him punch. He's genuine. And if at any time, whatever Bivol is doing, which the hardest thing for Bivol to do is going to be to hit Canelo solidly and consistently, if he starts to get hit back, it will turn out to be a very, very difficult fight for him. And I believe that with anybody who fights Canelo, if you're not able to hit him, if you're not able to get that respect, I think he takes control of a fight.
Yeah. Luke, do you think Bivol presents a bigger challenge, or do you think it's a no-brainer that Canelo is going to be victorious here?
I believe that this is the challenge that we have the less clue of exactly what's going to happen, because the only comparison that we can have is the Kovalev. And I watched a spot of this Kovalev and Canelo fight.
Right.
It wasn't the Kovalev that we knew. Like Kovalev, when he hits people, usually it's like it shake, crumble. You know, he did that to Jean Pascal, who has probably the best chin in the light heavyweight division still to this day. And that's the only comparison with a real 175 pounder. On the other part, I believe that Bivol is a great fighter. He has kind of everything, but the experience of a real show. And this changed a lot of a fighter. When you put your foot in the ring with the old week, the old training camp, thinking that you're fighting the pound for pound king, and the same way that if you were putting David Lemieux against Golovkin, version 2, a couple months after this fight, it would have been, I wouldn't say maybe the same result, but a different fight. The attitude of you getting in the ring with it's kind of the impression of being
the pressure of the moment gets
the pressure, everything. This Bivol never had this, even amateur, even like all this is here in boxing. This can press and have a lot of weight on a fighter like this. So that's I can't see Canelo lost. Not
unbeatable at the moment, but the one guy who's going to be watching attentively, I'm sure, is Artur Beterbiev, because depending on how Bivol looks against Canelo, there's still going to be the hardcore fans want to see that fight for all the belts at 175. And Canelo seems open to it, but he's been dismissive of saying, I don't really care about Beterbiev and Joe Smith. I just care about the belt, and I don't even know who's going to win. And we'll see, because I don't think it's a done deal by any stretch if that fight happens. But if it does, that would be, I think, maybe stylistically, of course, the toughest matchup for Canelo. Do you have any rooting interest, Russ, for Canelo, presenting and winning the belt because you want Artur Beterbiev to be the guy who wins all those belts at 175?
Well, of course, I would love that opportunity, especially for Arthur. Why wouldn't I want that? You want to always fight the best.
No, but I mean, do you prefer it whether it's all the belts, even if it's Bivol, or you like Canelo would be special?
Well, I'll tell you what, if Bivol has all the belts and ended up beating Canelo, I think that would be pretty special to fight him as well, right? I think it would be pretty special to fight that guy. But, I'm with Luke. I can't see Bivol getting through this. I think the question is going to be, how good does he get through this? How good does he come out of this? How good does he come out looking as being, wow, he gave it his all. What a great fight, which I think happened with Caleb Plant. I think Caleb came out of that fight, as a, you know what? Not bad, kid. Not bad. You did good. You're there. I think he comes out.
Yeah, but Canelo's style of late, it seems almost even to the Kovalev fight, he doesn't really care about winning the round. The strategy is to eventually you will break down. Like, I don't care about throwing a few rounds and just being more cautious and maybe not as aggressive. Eventually, once you're past round 8, you're not gonna fly. So I wonder if that's going to be the same strategy against Bivol, because Bivol hasn't shown any sign of being able to go down. So if Canelo is a bit too passive in the early stages, that's where it might get interesting, because he usually brings pressure and the guys start to fold in the later stages. I'm not sure that's going to happen with Bivol. I think Canelo's going to have to win a few more rounds early.
So Arthur's strategy.
What's that, Luke?
So Artur Beterbiev's strategy.
Well, Arthur usually comes out aggressive from the get-go.
Yeah, but he's still in gear number 3, and when he has to shift, he can shift.
Yeah, that's the point.
Great fighters.
I think be careful when you say passive. And I had this argument with people in how they were scoring the Kovalev fight, and I was giving rounds to Canelo that people were giving to Kovalev. And to me, watching him, I'm saying Canelo's winning those rounds because he's the one putting the pressure. He's the one not getting hit. He's controlling and making Kovalev fight when he wants him to fight and not fight when he wants him not to fight. He was the one doing that. And he knew he was breaking Kovalev down going into the late rounds. So, his passiveness is not always passive. Sometimes when it appears like he's doing nothing and he's just walking at you and picking off shots and coming at you, he's making you do stuff in a time in a fight that you don't want to do it. He's making you expend energy, and he's not the one getting hit. There's a difference if you're passive and not doing anything. You get hit, you get hit, you get hit. Oh, you get hit. But that's not the case. He might not be throwing a huge output, but he's making you work more than you want to work. And that's something that Usyk does exceptionally well also, and Loma. They make you work at a pace that you don't want to work at. And I think for me, the best example of that was watching Usyk against Tony Bellew. Tony, who I love, he's a great guy. I love talking to him. I saw him in Madison Square Garden. He was in fifth gear when Usyk was still in second, because Usyk made him fight, and he was winning rounds, but he didn't want to win them that way. He was having to exert so much energy to win those rounds, and he was winning them. But then Usyk just kept coming and coming, and now he's coming and throwing punches, and it makes it very difficult. And that's the kind of guy I see in Canelo. And I think that, like I said, the secret to Canelo, you have to be able to hit him. You have to be able to get to him. If you do not get to him, forget it. He's going to get you one way or another, even if he doesn't throw a punch for 5 rounds. Just walking you down and taking it to you and making you expend energy, he's beating you by using your own energy against you. That's the kind of special fighter he is. That's what I think.
Yeah. Final question here from the feed. Somebody asked that a bit earlier. Joe Calzaghe versus Canelo at a prime fight at 168. When we talk about mythical matchups, Calzaghe, some people really dislike his style, the slapping, punching style, volume punching, but still retired undefeated. A few close fights later on in his career. We think of Bernard Hopkins, of course, who dropped him, and then Calzaghe got up, won the fight. Was that a fight? Do you think a Calzaghe-Canelo fight would have been a matchup you would have wanted to watch, Russ, or you think it's an easy fight for Canelo?
Oh, I don't think Calzaghe's an easy fight for anybody. I think Calzaghe's could be a difficult fight as a southpaw, good hand speed. It would have been a very interesting fight, but based on their records now, based on their achievements and accomplishments now, and you compare the two, I'm going into the fight as the betting guy, making Canelo the favorite going into the fight. You know, I don't think based on their achievements and what they've done, I think Canelo had the better resume and came up better, was dominant against great fighters. So I'd have to say that Canelo would be the favorite going in.
I like that matchup, though, because Calzaghe, Luke, you were talking about pressure. Calzaghe did well in the big pressure moments.
Yeah, exactly. But have we seen the prime Canelo yet?
Yeah, I think he's in it now. He's been in it for a few fights.
I would say he's in it now. I think
he's improving every fight.
Yeah, he is.
This is, and from the Mayweather fight until the Golovkin one, he has a nice way up. And from the Golovkin 2 up till now, he changed his game again. Like, he changed his comprehension of boxing, his comprehension of how acting in the ring against the timing, not only his boxing ability, but his comprehension of a 3-minute round time 12. Like, this is his old game.
Yeah,
I believe. I'm not sure we've seen his prime yet, but we'll see.
Well, he's there.
I'm going to say something that I don't usually say that shows when I'm wrong about something, but I'm going to bring it out there because no one knows this, and I'm going to reveal it now. When I worked with Liam Smith against Canelo, I thought Liam did an outstanding job against Canelo, and I maybe gave him one of his best fights. And save for those vicious body shots, which hurt Liam, the fight was competitive and he was getting to him. And I remember after the fight with the result, even though he stopped Liam, I remember seeing Peter Nelson and I said, Golovkin just became a huge favorite if they fight. Based on what I saw Liam do with Canelo. And then he fought a completely different fight with Canelo, showed a completely different blueprint, different style, different IQ. You know, everything about him was different. He morphed into something else. And then the second fight, like Luke said, morphed into something else again, completely switched tactics from backpedaling to going forward the entire time. I think that's the fight where he hit his peak and still is getting better along the way. So, and the less he gets hit, the better he's going to get.
Well, listen, we look forward to that fight Saturday, Canelo Bivol. Russ, have fun at the wedding this evening with Mark Breland. I don't know if you want to also send out, though, Luke, thank you again for filling in and for joining the conversation. Always a very good substitute to the show. And Russ, maybe just a final thoughts. I know you're going to have a bit more of a somber moment this weekend on the passing of our friend and one of the great cutmans this country has seen, Bob Miller.
Yeah, I'm a little bit saddened by that. I'm flying home tomorrow, and then I'm driving to Albany for Bob's funeral. You know, I was one of the first guys, not one of the first guy to use Bob Miller. You know, when Howard and Otis Grant turned pro, I was the guy who brought him in. He used to book. He booked a lot of their early matches. Him and his former wife Lorraine, they booked a lot of Howard and Otis's early matches. And as a result of him is why we met John Scully, because he contacted John Scully to fight Otis Grant in the amateurs in June of 1988. And that's how we met. That's how we've been friends ever since then. So, you know, I've had a lot of good times with Bob, and we've covered a lot of path in boxing, and we were in Sheffield when he was with us in Sheffield when we won the title. You know, he was with me. He was with me in every one of Otis Grant's fights, and I was the guy who started using him first, and then everybody followed suit after that. You know, everyone then started using Bob, which is great. I'm glad he got that opportunity to do that, but he was my friend, and I'm going to miss him. But we all know the state that he was in, you know, after having the car accident. So I'm going to say that knowing Bob, I'm sure he's in a better place now and happier than having to live the way he lived the last few years being paralyzed. So, you know, my condolences, obviously, to his wife, Linda, who I'll see. But I'll be at the funeral, God willing, on Saturday.
All right. Thank you very much on those for those thoughts there, Russ. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And if you missed part of the conversation, it will be uploaded, of course, very shortly on the Calling Russ Anber podcast, another edition. Yes, Russ.
I have one more thing to say. Do you realize that Luke is now officially became the first paid guest that we've had?
Oh, you mean besides In-N-Out Burger?
Paid by you.
But more more than an In-N-Out burger. Exactly. That's crazy. That's
well, he stepped in
insane.
for you when you had COVID for the Artur fight against Marcus Brown, and he's stepping in on the podcast when you have bad Wi-Fi, and of course, not sure how to figure out your Instagram. So thanks everyone, and we'll talk soon. All right, back to work.
Back to work.
Yeah, back to work. Bye bye.
Time to go to the gym now.